Tales of Argosa is a tabletop role-playing game of sword and sorcery adventure. It is designed in the spirit of an old-school Renaissance style of game, but with more rules and systems in place to help adjudicate trickier aspects of gameplay without resorting entirely to Game Master fiat. It is a game of perilous adventure with plenty of danger and opportunity, all in the tone of classic sword and sorcery adventure stories, like those about Conan, or Kull, or Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. At its most basic, Tales of Argosa is meant as a sandbox-style game, where the players are tough and gutsy adventurers looking for fortune and glory in a dangerous setting, where magic and monsters can quickly overwhelm any characters who are rash or foolish. With the focus on more emergent gameplay, I think it'll match well with the West March's campaign-style guidebook, but it isn't by any means necessary to use it. One of the strengths of Tales of Argosa is that everything needed to play the game is in one relatively concise rulebook of about 260 pages. Not only do you get all the basic rules, but the book also contains variant rules, conversions from other game systems, and rules for solo play in case you're just looking to try it out for yourself. As presented, the rules are crunchier and more involved than many old-school Renaissance games, making Tales of Argosa more like Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 or Pathfinder's First Edition. But it's nowhere near as involved as Warhammer Fantasy or Zweihander, making this game a good middle ground for players who want a fierce and dangerous tabletop role-playing game experience, but without the ponderous rule sets of some other grimdark fantasy games. A unique feature of character development and progression is that the rules encourage players to create some of their own advancements for their characters, working them out with the Game Master ahead of time. Players who don't want to do this are free to select from a generous list of class advancements, but the opportunity to tailor your own unique upgrades not only helps the character feel more like it's specifically yours, but also carries on the do-it-yourself spirit of old-school tabletop role-playing games. This freedom alone will be a major selling point for a lot of players who like to craft unique characters. Unlike many OSR games, Tales of Argosa uses a slightly different set of ability scores, with even initiative being counted among them rather than as a derivative of another. There is also luck, which is both a type of ability score and a resource that players use over the course of the adventure. Some players will like this take, but others are going to find it a bit of a roadblock, since it can look like there are too many ability scores, and they lead into some of the more convoluted aspects of the game. Certain rules come across as much more complex than they need to be, which is a product of the game being crunchier rather than opting for a more streamlined system. When making ability or skill checks, players have to roll under a target score, a system found in other games like Call of Cthulhu, with special rules for great success and terrible failures. In combat, however, players have to roll over the target's armor class to score a hit, like in most other contemporary games. This use of two different systems for rolling a success in different situations is baffling, and as I alluded to earlier, is one of those points where the rules are a little more complex than they need to be. This is not a fatal flaw, but it's an odd choice. The character classes are pretty interesting, with the Artificer being a nice surprise, and the Bard being wildly different from what I would think most players expect. It leans much more into being a wandering spy or diplomat than an artist who also craves adventure. The magic user leads me to one of my biggest stumbling blocks. Tales of Argosa captures the feel of sword and sorcery fantasy, in which magic is rare and most often in the hands of villains. The game, however, includes a magic user class, while also disincentivizing the use of spells by players. Tales of Argosa includes rules for dark and dangerous magic, meaning the more players use magic, the more likely some random catastrophic event is going to happen. There are 50 spells, but there are 70 results for trauma resulting from dark and dangerous magic. Likewise, the spells are not so powerful that it would seem a worthwhile risk to rain stones on an area only to also be afflicted with madness, or be unable to speak a language that anyone understands for up to 4 months. This may sound interesting, but other classes do not have these drawbacks to their main talent. For instance, the Ranger's Beast Companion has no chance of suddenly turning on you, nor can the fighter's use of deadly strikes leave them suddenly open and vulnerable to increased chances of critical hits. My other disappointment with the spells is that given the game's emphasis on unique features as something the player is encouraged to specifically create, I hoped the magic spells would be similarly flexible and open to player invention or interpretation as seen in games like Knave. Overall, there is a lot I like about Tales of Argosa. The tone, sense of danger, exploration, and adventure are all excellent, reinforced by the black and white art in the book. I also think this game has a much lower bar for entry than many other grim and perilous tabletop role-playing games. For my tastes, however, it is a bit rules-heavy, including a whole set of rules that work against the major feature of playing the magic user character. The continued popularity of Dungeons & Dragons 3rd Edition and Pathfinder shows that there is an audience ready for a crunchier, ferocious game like Tales of Argosa, where players can feel like they are handcrafting their characters much more than in other games. I recommend picking up a copy and giving it a try just to see how well it works for your gaming table, or even just for the solo play rules. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my peculiar notions. If you appreciate this channel and want to support it, you know what to do. You can also take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel of another YouTube creator you enjoy, or the algorithm will permanently lower your charisma score. Until next time, play some good games, live, and be well.